Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of the ZEF-A Colloquium. We have guest researcher Pablo De La Cruz, who is talking about his research in the Amazon region.
Okay, thank you, Andrea, for these introductions. Hi all, my name is Pablo De La Cruz. I'm from Colombia. I'm a sociologist. And I came to talk to you about board games for participatory research and experimental ethnography on the trade of Chagra products in indigenous communities in the Colombian Amazon. Okay. Where this research took place south of Colombia in Tarapacá, that is a town that lies on the border of Colombia, Peru, and Brazil in the northeast Amazon. It's inhabited for ethnic groups such as Ticunas, Huitotos, Boras, Cocamas, Yaguas, Macu, Inga, Ocaina, Nonuya, and Andoki. It's a very multicultural region where there's also people who went to live there from the Colombian Andes, Peruvian Andes, and also from the coast of Brazil. So there's a big mixing up between different social groups and ethnic groups. Tarapacá is located in the estuary of two rivers, Putumayo River and Cotué River. There's two indigenous reserves, indigenous resguardos, how we say in Spanish in Colombia, and two natural national parks. Tarapacá is a small town, and around there is 9 communities. So Tarapacá is not like a small community, it's a town of around 1,000 and 1,000 people. There's a school, there's a hospital there, there's an army base, and is the center of this region, of these communities around. When I went there the first time, because I was an outsider, I had to hire my meals with a person that cooked for me. This person used to cook really nice. She used to mix different ingredients, local ingredients, and some processed ingredients that she used to buy on the stores. With the time, I saw that the local diet based on Chagra products, hunting, fishing, and gathering has been combined with purchased processed foods. So I was worried about because some of these agro-industrial processed foods were replacing some local foods, such as curcuma, that grows in gardens, but for some people who cook in town in Tarapacá, it was easier to get processed agro-industrial food like this one, trisalcina, maybe with tantrazina and these kind of things that are not such good for health. So I thought that there's been a loss of quality and diversity of food. But what's a chagra? A chagra, it's an agricultural plot from 2 to 3 hectares. In this region, there is a agricultural diversity around 37 species, including fruits, vegetables, and tubers. And some authors has registered about a reduction in agricultural diversity in settlements closest to urban centers. An average of 34% of the family's food is a result of self-provisioning from agriculture, fishing, and hunting. 63% of local foods are acquired through purchase, of which 60% is bought in local stores owned by non-indigenous merchants. I saw that there was a big quantity of food, of local food produced in chagras by indigenous families that was being selling to intermediaries, and they sell to consumers in a higher prices. So there was a problem. The problem was that indigenous peoples sell their products at prices which were unfavorable to them. Sorry. So there's a loss of food autonomy and food diversity. Why is happening this in the Amazon? Because the Amazon and this town, for example, has been taking place for so many things like extractive economies, exploitation of fish, ruba, fur and timber, evangelization, urbanization, narco-traffic. So many things has changed in this region. So many people have migrated there. So many economics and capitalist activities has taken place there, and it has transformed all the ethnic organizations of this region. So I had a hypothesis. It was I think, a neoclassical hypothesis. And I thought the main reason that indigenous peoples sell few products from their chagras was that in Tarapacá, there is no local marketplace. Rather, they generally sell on the street or to intermediaries at very low prices. At the time, I had some Adam Smith and Karl Marx ghosts in my mind, and I had that hypothesis. Let's see what happened. Because I wanted to change this, I proposed to do Feria de las Chagras de la Selva, Chagras Fairs, that are a kind of marketplaces for local producers to go one day there all together and sell their products. Like in some central areas of Colombia and Latin America, they do os ferias or plaza de mercado. That is very common to see in so many towns. In this town, there was not something like that. So I thought that it was a good idea to start doing this, and it would help producers to sell their products at better prices. We did in 4 years, 2012, 13, 14, and 15. After that, it's supposed that local organizations has to keep organizing these ferias to continue with this marketplace. This time I could organize because I had some funds from a project who I was hired, and it was because I was working in this area. But when the project finished, the people didn't decide to continue. Even it was a great idea, people was happy, was selling their crops, we were doing some cultural activities, dancing, plays for games for the kids, etc. Everyone was happy, but at the end, they didn't continue doing the fair by themselves. Why? I asked myself. I was very sad and a little bit depressed because I thought that I was lost my time. So to know more about what was happening, I decided to create a game with my wife, Maria Paula Vaquero. She's a psychologist. She loves board games, mainly Euro games. And we together designed the game of Chagras. The game of Chagras is about planting the Chagra, harvesting the Chagra, weeding the Chagra, feeding the family, purchasing tools. There's boards, icons that relate closely to the environment in the Amazonia, so the players recognize these icons very easily. It's about also processing food and about selling in 3 different spots: stores, doorsteps, and fair. So the game related production, more exactly diversity, redistribution, processing, and commercializations in 3 different spots. The method that we carry on was experimental ethnography. Experimental ethnography was good for us because we took Ingold's definition of ethnography as a way to documenting fieldwork. And the experimental, it was because there was a stimulus that in fieldwork, in this case, a board game that was systematic applied, and it was also performative. It was not a passive activity, it was an active activity where people engaged and shared their strategies and their thoughts. So experimental ethnography triggered methods for producing relevant information. Experimental ethnography is also good because it allows for analysis, for taking qualitative and quantitative methods together. And it's like a black box. I mean, a kind of test of cause and effect. And it's also a practice from feminist studies is conceptualized as a practice that is embedded, embodied, sensorial, empathetic learning, and also artistic. So at the end of the games, we classified the players according to their scores. There was who get highest score, mid-range score, and low scores. The ones who get the highest scores were the ones who deploy strategies to get the highest score. And the others, that was mostly of them, they deployed different strategies with different purposes. So what were these purposes that they had in mind? And that was not about having the high score. We'll see after. As a result, we found that diversity was inversely proportional to sales, to commercialization. So players who oriented their strategy for selling, they had less diversity, and vice versa. There was something that it was not seen on the scores, but I noticed observing the players' strategy. For example, players prefer to sell only part of their harvest in a given turn, even being allowed to sell all the harvest in one turn. And they also, players prefer to harvest only part of a Chagra in a given turn. And they were allowed to harvest all the Chagra in one turn. And they were definitely not playing Monopoly. And if there was no limit in the quantity of harvesting and selling, what was establishing that limit? Well, some dialogues from players allow us to see some principles of Chagra management that were underlying the logic and the strategies that they were deploying. For example, Joaquin Hernandez, he's a hunter, also a fisher, he said, while he was playing, in the exact moment, he was thinking loudly, the plantains are already being harvested. I'm going to plant yucca again. This kind of dialogues show me that there was a seasonality of planting and harvesting, and they were not doing. He was not doing to plant any plant. He had in mind something specific, and he did it in the game, like maybe he does in reality. Other different, for example, sufficiency. When one player said, "One must leave some products for the animals, even for the thieves," like joking, something like that. And redistribution, also called mingas. Someone said, you can't sell the entire harvest. If you do, then there aren't products left for exchange. So at the end of the games, I see that there was some socio-ecological particularities of Chagra management that were shaping the way that players play. For example, redistribution was more important than local sales, than selling. Redistribution that is also related to mingas makes that much of the products from the Chagra are redistributed among the families that help to prepare the land and plant the Chagras. So I had a question if the centralized market, the way to bring all the producers together for a place and do like a marketplace, like in so many places was a good idea, because the Chagra management had some particularities very different to this kind of logic of market to centralization and these things that we know. So the dispersion of trade in agricultural products, or the decentralizations, was due to things like seasonality of planting and harvesting, the quantity planted, and the redistribution. I found that the way of playing of so many players, that how they show in the game, is due to a kind of principle of social relation that some authors call abundance, or the economic of abundance, like a cognitive process that value resources not because they are scarce, because there's no scarcity, there's abundance. Resources are valued because their abundance is a totally different economic systems and also socio-ecological relations that shape this kind of take decisions in a game, also in reality. So indigenous peoples of the Amazon have been adapting Chagra management to their current needs based on their growing relationship with the market economy. There's much questions about this and how can we find strategies to indigenous people to strengthen their food autonomy, even adapting some traditional ways of productions to market relations, because things are changing in these kind of places. Each time there's more using of money to get products, to buy things. And so definitely some new things has to be proposed and innovate in these areas in order for strengthen what is food autonomy. Okay, what could we imagine with board games and participatory research? Let's see some ideas to see what do you think. This is a common meeting that how research is carried on in a community like this. When a researcher wants to communicate something for the community, they join together in a place. It's 12 o'clock, it's very hot, people is tired, maybe they're hungry, they are not taking too much attention for what the person is saying. So some things that they said, it was that many research that take place in their territories didn't allow for get solutions for the problems that they have. Yeah. So research, it was just about taking data and publishing in academic review journals. Yeah. The game could be a metaphor for reality, a way for visualizing their daily actions in a non-daily manner. Games spur interest, curiosity, and revelations in the players. Games are performative, a lived experience with a plot with its text, scripts, and performances. Games allow for simulation and performance space of social drama with a juncture, turning points, and denouement. As an interface, the game could be a metaphor that blur or elucidate the limits between reality and the simulation. It means that the information from a game is something in between of what's real and what's a game. From real is information that is already there to be gathered. And from the game is because intersubjectivity. Information did not previously exist, it emerged, like this Escher drawing, that something different come from the game, yeah? So games can talk the language of dramaturgy, yeah? We have so much inspiration from Goffman, from Victor Turner, anthropologists and sociologists, because they represent dramatic productions. What represent performances? And games can also talk the language of system theory, which game theory is part of this. They simulate and they do model. They can model. A game is also a model. And for participatory research, board games allow approaches and methods that propitiate analysis, mutual learning, and knowledge building regarding a collective situation. Games catalyze stories, narratives, empathy, and simulation, and definitely inspire the creativity into the research. And are also for having fun. Having fun is something more serious. Having fun allows the people to get rid of the pre-established scripts that they deploy when they talk, for example, with researchers, with people who from outsider, etc. And also for researchers, it's a way to clear a new space of talking where people is playing, but talking about real things. And also games can be good for allow good communication at different stages of the research process, to know to whom and where and with which intent, you know. It's a way to bring in simple language and in a different way, something that in the research could be complicated. So games are also good for communication. And game over. Thank you.